Let's learn how to Nangong you in 5 minutes. She's an ether stunner, but one who functions like an anomaly agent, with her blooms and polarity disorders. Her core passive gives her a bunch of anomaly proficiency, as well as impact that scales with how high her anomaly mastery is, so you want as much of it as possible. When an enemy is stunned, a blooms, disorders, and anomalies triggered by any character will give her a vibrato stack, capped at 4. Once the cap is reached, or stun ends, it will trigger a heavy hitting a bloom that is stronger the higher the stacks. Her charge basic attack and the EX special trigger a buff that increases Nangong's anomaly build-up rate and dazed out, as well as all squad members' damage for 30 seconds. Given how easy this is to trigger, it rarely needs much thought to maintain it. If her additional ability is active, which is triggered by anomaly or same faction agents, then against stunned enemies she provides a team-wide anomaly build-up rate bonus, which is further enhanced with chain attacks. She will also increase the stun damage multiplier and stun duration of enemies if she landed her ultimate or the final hit of her charge basic attack string before a stun. Stunning enemies will make her next EX special free to cast and generate 2 dance prowess stacks, seen as the icons on the gauge underneath her portrait in combat. Landing a charge basic attack, EX special or quick assist consumes a stack to trigger a polarity disorder and a reverse quick assist. This is easy to do as while she has dance prowess stacks, swapping to Nangong leads to an instant cast of her charge basic attack, yielding a quick, no-cost trigger. If Arya specifically is on the team, then this is triggered automatically on her stops, so no swaps are needed for it. Either way, since Nangong gets a free cast of her EX special, simply swapping to her once, then using an EX special will use up both charges. You can also time it so that her attacks land right after an enemy stuns, or swap to her twice to use stacks, which is helpful for fast chain triggers. Aside from dance powers, she also has a gauge that tracks her downbeats, which generates passively, but gets a fixed bonus whenever an attribute anomaly is triggered, with a 6-second cooldown. This resource is used for her basic attacks. The regular variant is middling, but holding it down will lead to a charged basic attack. When her weapon flashes, release it for a precise charging timing bonus, increasing its dazed out. Getting hit while releasing also gives the bonus. Half of the downbeats gauge can be consumed to lead to a second and then third hit, both of which also have their own precise charge timings. The second and third hit can be shortcut to after chain attacks, ultimates, and EX specials, and doing so always guarantees a precise charging bonus. Alternatively, these skills can be used between charge basic attacks and not interrupted sequence, so you could EX special, charge basic 2, EX special, charge basic 3. Her dodges are unremarkable, but the dodge counter does build a lot of days. Considering that charge basic attacks need downbeats to be used in full, this can be an efficient way to speed through to stun. Better yet though are her assists, which also build a lot of days and have the added benefit of using up only 1 assist point per parry, increasing her team's decibel and days build potential. All of her other moves are quite standard. Her special isn't worth using while her EX special is, costing 40 energy and building a fair bit of days and anomaly. Since it's low cost and shortcuts to later charge basics, it's used often, and given that it's free during stun, makes her an effective way to get disorders and trigger ally chain attacks. Her own chain is rather slow, but can be used for anomaly application in stun, whereas her ultimate has some of the highest days multipliers in the entire game and activates Ether Veil Delusion Reprise, giving a flat 50 attack bonus for the team. Prioritize leveling her core followed by basic attack and special in equal measure, then ultimate, assists, and lastly dodge. When playing her, make sure to apply frequent anomaly to enemies to build Nangong's downbeats gauge. Then, once full, land a charge basic attack second and third hits, ideally by shortcutting it after an EX special to get her buffs and debuffs. Her ultimate can also be used to apply her debuffs, but don't forget that her buffs demand either EX or charge basics, so make use of its shortcut to the latter. Once an enemy is stunned, trigger a bunch of her blooms, anomalies, and disorders so that Nangong gets her own bloom, all the while making use of her high anomaly build-up rate to sustain disorder dancing comps that demanded. Don't forget to use up her dance power stacks either by swapping to her twice or swapping and using her EX special, which becomes free once per stun. For her gear, use anomaly proficiency in slot 4, ether damage percent, attack percent, or pen ratio in slot 5, and anomaly mastery in slot 6. For drive this sets, Phaethon's Melody is best for her damage. Alternatively, Freedom Blues can work in teams when Nangong's anomaly build-up is struggling to keep up with that of other agents. For her vengeance, her signature is absurdly strong as it has an anomaly mastery main stat, provides a team-wide damage bonus, and gives Nangong an ungodly amount of anomaly proficiency, making it so that her attribute anomalies actually do damage. It is arguably one of the most important signature vengeance, but if skipping it, Hellfire Gears and Steam Oven are passable owing to her low-cost EX special and its free casts. Fossil is, as always, great for low-scoring runs, and the new Simmering Pot Vengeance can work to boost Nangong's personal damage. Be mindful that while she is performing coordinated attacks with other idols, the off-field energy region from Hellfire Gears will not activate. As for Mindscapes, her M1 gives Rest Shred, so it's damage. Her M2 increases her Vibratos of Bloom damage bonus, she gets an even higher stun damage percent multiplier, and an additional polarity disorder when a chain attack hits a stunned enemy, so it's damage. Her M4 increases her anomaly proficiency generally, as well as the build-up rate on charge basics. This can help with out-of-stun disorder juggling, but otherwise, it's just damage. Her M6 is absurdly broken, giving her a 50% increase to all of her days, which by itself completely changes routes, and she now also gets vibrato stacks building out of stun, which then trigger in-stun, so even more damage. When it comes to teams, her best lineup would be the full Idols comp, with Miyabi using her as runner-ups. Alice can work very well too, especially if one can get more polarity assaults and stuns. Other teams are viable even if it means giving up on their additional abilities, like with Yanagi, simply because Nangong is that overpowered. In such cases, running a support third slot instead of anomaly is best, owing to Nangong's high build-up rate. In terms of scores, as of her release, you can expect to kill the squad in solo with a full Idols team. The 2.7 boss used to be killable, but changes to it and buff lineups make this no longer possible, where I average around 53,000 instead, but 55,000 plus was doable. As for me, Abby, it'd have killed Marinette with time to spare, but I did not make any attempts post-patch, so keep that in mind. Know that all of this is subject to further change. All in all, Nangong is looking to be ridiculously broken and universally useful. Don't be deceived by low scores owing to poor boss balancing, as she's one of the strongest agents ever released to date. That'll be all from me today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.